In my last video, I covered the education system in the primary schools of Great Britain. The video, even at the time of upload, was dated, but a good starting point. In the current year, radical liberalism is now well established in all aspects of society, not just education. The attacks on normality are relentless and target mainly white males and family life in general. No area of life is omitted from these brainwashing techniques: the news, media, films, Christianity but never Islam, even computer games, and especially the advertising industry. Government policies also seem supportive of this agenda. You never see a rollback. In the age of social media, the weaponizing of words are key to the assault, along with, of course, the banning and censorship of effective counter viewpoints. White folks are demonized, and when they struggle to make a success of their lives by their own efforts and succeed, instead of being praised, they are often branded with the white privilege tag. Are non-whites subject to wholesale discriminatory practices? Definitely not. Quite the reverse. Take a look around Britain, starting with the Lord Mayor of London. London has a population of about 8.7 million people. The Lord Mayor is Sadiq Khan. It's a prestigious position, yet he is very divisive and not very functional in his job. I could make a complete video about his incompetency. Of course, it's not just London that has a non-white mayor. Most of the heavily populated cities do. Here are a few, starting with Birmingham with a population of over 1 million. It's Yvonne Mosquito? Well, I think it's pronounced that way. Better just put the names up here on in. Notice a lady with the pink feathers in her hair, sobbing with the joy of it all? Okay, we don't want to make this dreary. I will spice things up with a good music track.
powerful allegations of racism are. Think of this. An allegation of racism turned career criminal and drug addict George Floyd into the second coming of Martin Luther King Jr. Just think about that. George Floyd, career criminal, fentanyl addict, in a t-shirt, passing off a fake $20 bill, high as a kite behind the wheel of a car. In an instant, in 9 minutes, he becomes Martin Luther King Jr. Had a black police officer kneeled on St. George's neck and shoulders, no one would know George Floyd's name. There certainly wouldn't be murals and statues commemorating the last 9 minutes of his life. That's how transformative racism gold is, even when it's fool's gold. And I know many of you are going to hear that and think, oh, here go Whitlock again, taking a dump on St. George Floyd. But I'm just sorry. We've gone way too far with the adulation, celebration, veneration of George Floyd. It's a joke. It's a tragedy. What happened to him? He played a gigantic part in contributing to that tragedy with his actions. But there's no damn reason to turn this guy into the second coming of Martin Luther King Jr. because a white police officer kneeled on his neck and shoulders for 9 minutes, and the combination of fentanyl and COVID in his system, along with the police officer on his shoulder and neck, caused him to die.
Right to the point, don't you think? This sort of conditioning controls, as it's meant to. The technique to silence any dissident amongst the white population has a scientific name: neural linguistic programming. Basically, trigger words that are fully defined and loaded with guilt. Give a dog a bad name in basic terms. For more than a few decades, the downgrading and belittling of white people has continued in Britain and Europe. The education system has also failed many white families as a result. Professor Matthew Goodwin has been giving evidence to the virtual hearing of the committee's cross-party education committee, informing them that the national conversation in the last 10 years, personally I think it's the last 30, has become much more consumed with other ethnic groups. That's just a nice way of saying white folks have been ignored. As a result, white families felt disadvantaged and suffered from status deficit, feeling that they were not afforded the same recognition and esteem as others. As a result, poor white communities scholastically perform worse, especially white boys, who perform worse than average compared with other ethnic groups. The Department of Education shows this in the GCSE results. Of course, this is only the tip of the iceberg, and it is compounded by British white people becoming a minority in all major cities and larger towns. America often reflects our future trends, and the YouTuber Mark Dice covered this in a recent video, which follows.
Celebrated, like Jimmy Fallon's audience when they heard the latest figures.
Some more news. The results of the 2020 census just came out, and for the first time in American history, the number of white people went down.
The idea that whites will not be the majority, I mean, it's an exciting transformation of the country.
White Americans will soon be a minority, and that's great.
Not only our Muslim communities, but African communities, Asian communities, Hispanic communities, and the wave still continues. It's not going to stop, nor should we want it to stop.
This is not going to be the country of white people.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Take a look at this headline today from the Washington Post. The Trump immigration plan could keep white in the U.S. majority for up to 5 more years. The census currently projects white people will no longer be the majority by 2044. The Post finds that under Trump's plan, whites could remain as a majority until 2049.
A lot of the real craziness comes, if you like, from rural white Americans who feel that it's they're losing their country. They're losing ownership of the country. And they're right. I mean, we are becoming more diverse, more multicultural, and they are, in the end, they are not the future. In the end, the power they still have will go away.
Now, if that doesn't convince you of the negative effects of multiculturalism, what will? Imagine if you were to replace the word white with Asian or black, etc. It just wouldn't be allowed, would it? It wouldn't happen. Make no mistake, Britain and Europe are on the same path. Who's to blame? The native British and European populations for voting in politicians that sell their own people out. Africans, Asians and Chinese will always exist, but white folks will be blended out.